Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with artists. Like, I just interviewed Rich the Kid.
Very, very hard to understand what he was saying.
Not my favorite interview.
I know you hated it.
Not my favorite interview. Let me tell you. And this is why we just don't work with labels very often. This was one of the ones set up through a label. And we had interviewed him before for like going back like 5 years, a bunch of interviews. But the label was like, we don't want you to talk about this. We don't want you to talk about that. We don't want you to talk about, and there was a bit of a negotiation, and they were like, well, if you talk about this, we're going to end the interview. And I'm like, I'm not going to do the interview if you're just going to end the interview if the conversation goes a certain way. I'll exclude certain things, but I'm not just going to sit there on edge. Like, okay, that's fine. Just try not to mention these things unless he mentions it himself. So
I hate when the labels try to play those games.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff didn't get talked about. Like, notice the whole Lil Uzi Vert thing never got mentioned. The home invasion got mentioned, but he didn't want to talk about it. He's wearing a face mask the whole time, so he's hard to understand. He's giving relatively 1 or 2 word answers on a lot of stuff.
I mean, honestly, go watch my Rich the Kid interview because I would like to know. It's probably in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people mention it to me, like, what the fuck was going through your head in that interview? Like,
yeah, it's tough as an interviewer because you're trying to create this dope product, but you need the cooperation of the other person. You can't just keep the conversation going yourself, which I kind of had to do
right.
a lot of ways. And look, he's wearing the face mask, and do I ask him to take the face mask off and risk him leaving? Because it was kind of a bit, a lot of work to get him there in the first place. So you say, fuck it, let's just run it with the face mask and then that. And then the interview was literally one of my worst performing interviews this year.
Really?
By far. One of, like, him and Young Pinch were kind of neck and neck in terms of my least performing interviews. And this is not a shot at Young Pinch. I mean, he's a cool guy. It just wasn't the most exciting interview. Whereas you get someone like Anthony Jeezy Gonzalez, who's
watched every single part of that.
The Clips' old manager, who 99.9% of my audience had never heard of before.
Right.
But yet it was such an intriguing story, and there was so much interesting information. He was so honest, and I could ask him anything that it gets like 3 million views. Whereas this Rich the Kid interview, let me see what it said. I could actually tell you. Yeah, the Rich the Kid interview is around 400,000 views combined.
Wow.
Which is absolutely low for the type of, like, if we're not over 3 million, it's a bit of a flop for us.
Right.
So
it's
too bad. And his album didn't do that well, unfortunately. I think he did like 12,000.
And the weird thing to me about Rich the Kid and the fact that he's basically useless as an interviewee is that he's clearly capable of making good music. He's clearly smart as a A&R / like label dude, because he almost signed Uzi. He signed Famous Dex.
Oh, he almost signed Uzi?
Yeah, that's what their beef was about.
Is that what the beef was about?
Yeah.
I had no idea. Because I
Because
remember he
super
made a
early
video
on,
where he's like burying him and stuff like that. That's what the beef was about?
Uzi was one of those dudes that Rich was hanging out with that he thought was going to sign to him, and obviously it would have been his biggest success to date as a A&R or whatever if got him to sign to Rich forever. That would be unbelievable. I mean, he would just be beefing with Rich the Kid right now instead of DJ Drama. But he signed Rich, Jay Critch, Famous Dex. You might look at them and say, oh, their careers aren't like exploding right now, but they definitely have made it.
They made their mark. I would give both of them their props.
No, I would still say Jay Critch has definite chance. He might need to switch some shit up, but his music is good and stuff. He signed 83 Babies, who are really good.
And then one of the guys ended up killing a 9-year-old,
which I've learned about
allegedly
from your interview. Yep. But I mean, he's clearly a guy who's got something going on upstairs, but then like sort of chooses to present himself in interviews as if, I mean, I don't even want to begin to describe it, but whatever he's putting forth, that version of himself.
I mean. And me and him would DM each other. We were supposed to do an interview before, because we were supposed to do 83 Babies and him at the same time. And then the whole 83 Babies murder thing happened. And we had been supporting him for 5 years, and we do the interview, and he just almost doesn't want to be there. And then as soon as the interview ends, he takes off his mask, and he has his Rolls Royce truck in our parking lot, and he shoots a music video.
Right out there?
Right out there in the parking lot, all animated. I'm like, look at this girl like, This is the energy I needed in my interview right here. Here it is.
Wow.
Here it is. 5 minutes later. And I think my interview was the only interview he did before his album dropped. And not to say that, I just feel like he could have pushed it a lot harder. The album kind of dropped, and it did the same as Blueface. Blueface, both of them did around 12, 13.
Right.
And Rich the Kid, I feel, is a much bigger artist than Blueface. He has a bunch of big songs like Plug Walk and New Freezer and a bunch of, and then his next album had a bunch of big songs. Like Blueface has one really big song, but I would put Rich the Kid as an artist with a bigger fan base. But
I don't really feel like, in terms of just why his album underperformed, I don't think that there was a lot going on in the culture that made people excited about listening to the Rich the Kid album.
Lil Uzi Vert dropped right around the same time, and they were supposed to drop on the same day. I think he moved it out that slot.
I mean, honestly, like the Lil Uzi Vert explosion of having him put out 2 projects 2 weeks in a row, a lot of artists suffered because that Megan project sort of went without too much commotion aside from the label drama.
Yeah.
The Blueface thing, I mean, same thing. It's like he didn't really, what was the Blueface moment that would make you want to check that album out? And that's a very like underrated skill that I've heard discussed in terms of rappers is like, can you make yourself hot? Because you might have to spend X amount of years not hot out of the year, like take yourself and sort of hide yourself away so that the people will get more excited to hear music from you. But then when you come out, you have to be able to figure out what you need to do in order to make the people really give a shit about what you're putting out there. Obviously with Uzi, it's like he's had this multi-year like run time of like building up anticipation for it. I don't think Rich the Kid or Blueface really did anything to make them part of the conversation in that moment. And even, when Blueface did the thing where he threw the money off the car in Skid Row for the homeless, think about something like that. Think about Blueface, even with the sort of Nipsey and Whack, like weird, like beef of him not mentioning Nipsey or whatever. Blueface is all in the news when that happened,
which I didn't think was a big deal. I thought that was. Look, you don't have to shout out everyone who passes if you don't know that person.
I don't think it's a big deal that he didn't post Nipsey. I get that because if you get gang shit in LA, it's like, okay, he didn't want to acknowledge somebody that maybe had issues or whatever. But the thing on my interview where I'm asking Whack about it and Blueface does not say R.I.P. Nipsey, he's just sitting there and he's munching on chips or peanuts. I forget what it was. He's being so disrespectful with his whole demeanor about it that it takes him not saying anything about Nipsey and it shifts it from him just not saying anything to him basically like disrespecting him because of the way he was eating those chips.
I guess, man.
But either way, I'm saying that there's always Blueface shit in the news. He didn't do any of that leading up to the album. It's like,
well, he went on a promo run.
Right, but
we didn't interview him, but
it didn't really turn into anything.
I mean, I know Nick Cannon did, and a few other people did.
Even something like remember Blueface and Shiggy were going at it after Rolling Loud because Blueface said,
Shiggy offered to drop an album that was going to outsell Blueface.
That is an example of the kind of thing that Blueface could have used to build like significantly more hype for his album. Is like having any sort of good conversation. And Shiggy's not like the biggest star in the world, but Blueface. If Blueface had just cooked something up better, that album definitely could have sold 2, 3, 4 times as much as it sold. Like, how is everybody killing Lil Xan for selling 20K back when he came out? And then you got these dudes who are way more established than Lil Xan doing half as much.